Ben, what's going on, man? Welcome to the Dad Edge, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Larry. So good to be here, man.
Now, I have to tell you, man, I've done almost 1,000 of these. Oh, I've done over 1,000 of these interviews. You by far, the lighting, the camera, like it's on point. I can tell that you are definitely in the movie industry because it looks
Yeah,
really good.
we got the setup here now. Yeah,
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
might need to start my own podcast now.
Yeah, perhaps, right? Well, hey,
Right.
listen, I know that there's a lot of attention on the topic that we're going to be talking about today. But just to give the audience just some context as far as what your life currently looks like, family life. What does life currently look like for you right now from that perspective?
Yeah, we're kind of in the middle of it right now. Everything's kind of just culminating, and a lot of different things have taken place. Especially with that, I think what you're talking about is just kind of like the release of information on this issue, both through the films that just came out, Sound of Freedom, and there's bills going on. And yeah, both sides of the media are just picking up on it. And I think it's a perfect storm for what we're doing with our film, and it's just kind of created a lot of synergies with different people and different organizations. And so it's just been like an amazing time, because I really do believe that when it comes to this issue of rescuing children, that it's a hope. I have a lot of hope for what we're going to be able to accomplish with all of these people now coming together. And so yeah, I'm excited.
Can you share with us how big is this problem? Like how big is the trafficking problem as far as any statistics that you might have or any numbers that you
Yeah,
might have?
yeah. So it's $150 billion industry. So it's actually bigger than every sports industry combined. And what's crazy about that is if you didn't see any hats of teams, you didn't see any sports fans, you didn't see any advertisements for these industries that are huge, you would think that's strange. And yet this is even huger, and it's just not seen anywhere. And so what people that's why I'm having to share this statistic even is because the problem is concealed to the point where it could grow to that kind of number. Um, so yeah, there's in America alone, there's 300,000 kids that are being trafficked every year. There's 800,000 that are going missing every year, and then there's obviously the ones that are unaccounted for. Globally, there's literally 40 million people trafficked. Globally, there's like 8 million children trafficked. And so it's a really, really big issue. It's in my mind, it's there's no bigger issue. There's no more important, more no one I'd rather lay my life down for than for a child and for this kind of issue. I think that's just a common ground with a lot of people, that they would find that, if there's something going on with a child, like, yeah, like let's just throw everything aside and handle this thing. And so yeah, but yet there is also a lot of good organizations and rescue missions. But another statistic is the fact that less than 1% of these children are ever rescued as of now, even with all the great work going on. And so it's a big problem.
My gosh, man. I would love for you
Yeah.
to share with us what are I feel like an idiot actually just even saying this out loud, knowing these statistics. So we I was with my 9-year old actually this yesterday. And normally before Sound of Freedom, before I saw your trailer and did some research myself, there's this shop that we go to. I'll call it that because it's a grocery type shop, right? And I
Yeah.
go there sometimes on the weekends, every now and again. But the shop is like literally, where I park, it's literally 10 feet from the door, right? And there's
Yeah.
always been this, my 9-year old sometimes will be with me and be like, is it okay if I just stay in the car and listen to music? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine. I can see from where I'm at. And there's always been that part of me. It's like, should I do that? Should I not do that? Like literally he's right there. Like as I'm checking out, like I can like see him right there. Right. It's not like I'm going into a grocery store and I'm like 10 aisles deep and I don't even have like I have vision to the car. But ever since
Right.
this whole thing came out, like I don't leave my kids anywhere, even if it's only 10 feet away. Right. But I would, and a lot of it has to do with the awareness that's out there now. But I would love for you to just share, if you know, just any really common mistakes that parents make. I know for you in the trailer that I saw, the girl who's taken Jamie, right? You leave her for just a few moments at a dirt bike race, right?
Right.
And you thought she was with like your buddy.
Right.
And that's like, you think like a parent would like, oh yeah, that's kind of common. But what are some common mistakes that parents make? They're like, oh my gosh, I just did X, Y, and Z, and I never would have thought in a million years.
I think I think especially with, I'm not just saying it, but just younger parents too. I find that there's many people that just don't have any idea, aren't educated on the how widespread it is, how prevalent it is. If I were to tell you there's a meth head down the street, you wouldn't be that surprised. But for some reason, people don't understand that there are predators probably within a couple mile radius of where you're at, and that's just another statistic. Just with talking with people that are dealing with these operations here in the U.S. And so, um, a lot of what people need to be more aware of is probably because a lot of younger generations are always on their phone, and so that's one way of, like, you're in a large setting and you're on your phone, you're not really keeping yourself aware, and especially young women too. Coming out to your car alone when you're at a public place at night, like, you want to have a real awareness and try to prevent that from taking place. Because there's just like there's a Top Golf, which is a golf indoor golfing range bar type thing down the street from where I live, and it's near the freeway. And the sheriff department are getting a trafficking call a week from this location, and it's a nice place. And so there's just so much. And then obviously, in the trailer, that's a small town. I'm from a small town as well, and there's just kind of naivety about these humble small town people can also be from, thinking that that's not going to actually be an option. But really, just when you realize it's everywhere, it could be at the local fairgrounds, it could be at the Super Bowl, it could be at Disneyland, could be anywhere. I think people have an innate instinct, just like you did, of what to do in a given situation. When you know what a real threat is, you'll find that you'll be cognizant to prevent that. And yeah, I mean, one of the things people can look out for too, when it comes to actually not just protecting their own kids, but keeping an eye out for other kids. Because one of the people I was just talking to, she was trafficked from a young age, and inside and outside of the U.S. And she was actually in Harris County, Texas, for 4 years, Astrodome, all these locations, with her trafficker, with her predator that had taken her, and then was extradited out of the country with this guy after 4 years. But literally millions of people, no one had the awareness to even look for the signs, which, like, is this person kind of, is this child look kind of like out of it, look kind of distant, look kind of like unassociating with the person that they're with. um are they wearing like heavy clothing and like the heat to cover up bruises or stuff like this? Just there's all these sorts of different signs that I've been educated on to become more aware of, like, okay, and then knowing how common it is, it doesn't feel as weird to, like, I'm gonna do something about this. When you think it's like a rare thing, like, oh, it's probably not, I'm probably just being crazy, you won't do anything about it. You won't see the suspicion and act upon it. You won't try to get a hold or get attention to someone. But when you realize the numbers, when you realize how prevalent it is, you're like, okay, this is probably likely, given these signs. And if I'm wrong, I'm never going to see this person again anyway. So might as well, like, try something in some way. Usually, if there's an authority, try to get the authority first. Let them handle it. That way, you're not
Yeah.
getting involved. But or if you have a opportune moment where the child's alone, try to ask them, are you okay? Do you need help? Do you need me to get a hold of someone? I can help you. Pretty much try to see if you can pull something that would be enough to where you go to get the authority and handle it. But yeah, there's really it's sort of like I heard Jim Caviezel talking about how it's sort of like when someone's in the water and there's a shark and they don't know what to do, they just run or they try to swim away, and that's just never going to help. When like how you're supposed to actually intimidate, you're supposed to actually, if you can, like punch it in the nose or something. When you learn these things, you're more equipped in these circumstances. And as you just said, like you watched that film, you saw a lot of what's going on, and it's like made you more like on your like head on a swivel, more aware, more on target with that. And I think that that's huge because this problem is not going to be solved by just you know whatever number of really amazing special ops people that we have. It's going to be solved by everyday Americans looking out for each other, and then other countries as well doing the same thing, and obviously the funding and more funding so that we can have more people equipped to go to these countries where awareness isn't even like the number one issue. It's like the entire culture. But here in America, we're the number one consumer, and we are definitely in need of awareness on this. Even if just one child is missing, it's like it's preventable if people are paying, if good people are not unafraid to step out and do something, brave, then it's preventable to a degree.
100%, man. I had a, I want to go a little deeper on this because I want, as you're looking at me, right? I'm like, we're in a society where this is always going on, right? We always have our nose in our, you see people doing it, like as they get out of their car at the grocery store and just to walk in, they're like, oh, I'll just check real quick as they walk through the parking lot. And so like, there's a lot of distraction going on. I had a fantastic guest on not too long ago by the name of Josh Brisbane, who wrote a book called Hard to Kill. And he teaches basically parents. He's martial artist by trade, but he teaches parents how to be socially vigilant. Right. And he knows a lot of different facts, but he said this fact, and I'm curious to know your view on it, or if the experience is similar, because it was the first time I ever heard it from Josh, which is a predator will actually, the way they actually target a child is that what they first look to do is they target the parent. Like if worse came to worse, can I take this dude out? Right. Or can I fight this guy or whatever else? Right. But so they target not only these kids, but they also target parents. Is that true?
There's definitely truth to that in certain circumstances. In other circumstances, I mean, it's just like it's like because it's so widespread, it's like there's not like a one way, but yeah, that is definitely and then the thing that really blows my mind is when you have suburban parents actually selling their kids like
What?
that literally like yeah, that blows my mind. But and then actually I was enlightened onto that piece from, I was actually a guest on the Ed Milet show.
Yeah.
And she was trafficked by her parents. They didn't even need the money. And 4 years old, just book an appointment. You're going to be with this person. It's just like the evil that's out there is just like, you can't even fathom it. And that is, in my mind, that's just straight from hell. That is just like, there's nothing more evil than that. There's no other explanation for that.
I suddenly feel nauseous. Like I literally, I did not know that. I mean, like you always assume like there's no parent on the planet that wants to not have their child. Right. I can't even imagine the degree of evil that is going on where a parent is willingly doing that. From a statistical standpoint, I don't know it. I don't know. And we don't know. We don't know. Is that number high?
I don't know the numbers on that, but man, I've heard too many stories on it to like, I don't know why I'm even hearing one story on it, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a thing. and the thing is, because there's a market. And so, yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, obviously, you know, with the child protective services and foster care, there's lots of just bad people. There's lots of just bad people that just don't care about anyone but themselves. And I think I think we like to just focus on the good, but when we realize, okay, there's a lot of bad, then you know, we got to do something about it if we're good, you know. So, um, and that's just one piece. I mean, you know, there's a particular um, there's a story I heard was a pastor out of Texas that has this big Answer International ministry where they rescue kids in Brazil and Cambodia and Belize, and they actually are rare because they rescue these kids, they buy them essentially as if they're going to traffic them, and then they actually keep them and they raise them. And so they've rescued, I think, a couple thousand children. And one of the children, this past year, he had never met her yet, but he had heard that there was a girl part of the rescue that was mute, which hadn't talked to anyone, and she would not speak. And it's been like 6 months, and she was just would not say a word. And he actually had a dream, you know, because our film's about dreaming. He had a dream one night that he actually went and met her in person, said hey, and then she ran into his arms as if she was her dad. He was her dad, and then she just started talking, and she was like, you know, just bright and totally changed within a second. He wakes up from this dream while he's on his anniversary on like an island, and he felt compelled, like, I'm gonna go down there and that's gonna happen. And so he flew down there, and he gets there. The whole thing happens exactly as he thought it would. She ran into his arms, hugged him. There's the pictures of it, and she started speaking. She wouldn't shut up. Actually, she started like, you know, this is I'm like the older sister, and and these are my I'm like the oldest one here, and she's like 9 years old, I think. And it's just this really moving story for me to hear. And then talking with him last week, um, the mother of this girl who was a prostitute and was selling her came with two cartel guys to their you know shelter, and they just ripped the girl out, and she was kicking and she was screaming, and two of the ministry guys that were running it came out and said, hey, don't do that. And they both got killed. They both got shot. And he had sent me pictures of this. And so this girl's just been re-trafficked last week, and my brother and him have been talking, and we got him hooked up with some of the guys that work with Tim Tebow's operations and Tim Ballard's operations, and they're going in right now on an op to rescue her, hopefully completed by Wednesday. And so it's just like it's become really real for us and what we're doing, and just like, you know, it's not just a film, it's not just a story, it's literally people's lives, you know. And so um it's heartbreaking, but it's like people can do something about this, and people are, you know. It's just there's not enough like the awareness is the first key piece, and I think that's object number one, right? And that's prevention. And then you know, with what we're trying to do, we're trying to make it to where we have a real source that we're going to be creating, not only with the proceeds of our film, but with the awareness our film's going to bring, and directing people right at the end of it to like, here's how you can help, you know, not just, I mean, not just go, hey, we'll go buy another ticket, you know, if you're a friend, but like, here's these organizations you can actually help. You can actually do something today. You can partner and you know, send out relief towards these organizations, or here's how you can help get involved, you know. And I think having that on the big screen, having, you know, real things that immediately create awareness. And then obviously, you know, like here's like what we were just talking about. What do we do? What do we, how can I get involved? How can I prevent? How can I be more aware? How can young parents be more? These are all things people need to see on a, if we're talking about awareness, when we're talking about a film, like that's the opportunity right there, right in the theater, right there to create that impact and in the biggest way you can, not a, waiting down the line, hoping they're going to do it later, because a lot of times it's right when you're moved right there in those moments. There's a special time right when you watch a film, right when you are in that moment, that it's sort of like a opportune time to really touch people's hearts.
Sure.
And so yeah, there's just so much to it, and there's just so many different aspects of this issue, because it's not like a little issue. It's a us issue. It's a life issue. It's an our world issue. And it's an everyday issue. I think even growing up, right, you always hear stranger danger. And I'm not sure if it's the problem's grown or it's just become grown more awareness, but I do know the market for it has grown exponentially. And it's just a different world we're living in, even to when I was a little kid, because we would play out in the street and ride our bikes and just go anywhere, and people would know where we're at. And I don't really know. It's tough, right? Because that is like an essential part of childhood and life too. So I don't have the answer for what you do every single second of the day, but there are certain things in certain circumstances, like obviously nowadays what we do have is phones, so you can track your kids and where they're at if they're not with you to a certain degree. I'm not like for like the chipping your kids thing. I'm not sure exactly. I've heard some people talk about that, but there are different things in making sure that like there are um, certain parameters that we have access to that weren't around when you were a kid.
Sure. If you're cool with it, what I'd like to do
Yeah.
is, so I'm taking notes as you're talking, and, awareness, prevention.
Right.
And to be honest, I think it's safe to say that we're so distracted that prevention piece might be something that we as parents need even more of, because we are
Right.
distracted on our phones. And yeah, man, I grew up in a society and in a generation of, hey, you can, leave the house at 10 o'clock in the morning on your bike at 7, 8 years old, come home for lunch, and then come home when the street lights come on, come home for dinner. Right.
Right.
And, and we just hung around, we just went around the neighborhood. And yeah, of
Yeah.
course there were dangers. We had to keep a lookout and that kind of thing. But I think in this day and age, most parents are not on board with that really anymore, but yet the problem is growing. So as
Right.
parents, as parents being effective, parents being preventative, parents being, aware and preventative, what what are some really simple things that we miss that maybe we do that we could, like, what I'd really love to do is for a guy to listen to this podcast and be like, okay, I know I'm not doing that, and that anymore. And instead I'm going to do this, and this, and keep a more vigilant eye, prevent anything from ever happening to my kid. But what are some of the most common things that we miss as parents that are more easily preventable?
I think knowing, really, really taking interest in knowing also who your kids are hanging out with, and who other kids' parents are, and not just as easily or quickly trusting that whatever you instill is going to be something someone else instills. When you hand your kids over for a weekend, or a couple, sleepover or something like that. And yeah, just taking a real interest. I find that if people take a real interest and they really, really weigh the things when they're at the Fourth of July party, or they're out in a public setting, their object number one should be to protect and make sure that they're aware of where their kids are at all times, and be aware of their surroundings. Be realizing that they're on the job. Um, and I know people look at the people with the little kids with leashes, whatever. But I mean, this day and age, it's a real it's a real thing. It's a real thing. If you're in a big public setting and maybe you have a bunch of kids and you can't keep an eye on all of them. But yeah, I think that it's a really good question. It's a really good question that I don't think the answer in any given particular situation is going to be figured out all at once. I just think when people have that on their mind, um, it's going to create a whole conversation that just continues and like, yeah, like, hey, like this isn't like, as soon as people realize, it's going on, it's like, I don't know. I just saw that there were several dozen kids rescued. I forget which state it was, last week. And so, and then you do hear every once in a while, you hear of the missing report on television. You hear about the kid that was missing, and they're doing a frantic search for it. But there's just so many more kids that aren't accounted for or aren't reported, um, that don't have a great family or even anyone to look out for them. So yeah, as someone who doesn't have kids yet, that's something that like is like very like integral to like how I'm even going to go into that, because that's it. When people become parents, you just got to realize how big of a, these people are looking for that one person. Oh yeah, look, there's an opportunity right there. That person's not paying attention to their kids. I mean, you notice when a guy's out with his girlfriend and she's really good looking, he's looking to see if anyone's checking her out. And I think that uh as parents, we should have that kind of perspective as well. Not like, everyone's evil, but like just having that like eye and looking who's around you, who might you think that you might need to be keeping an eye on, not just on your kid, but on them. And I think that's probably a good tip with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really good to know. Again, I'm taking notes here. Who your kids are hanging out with, their parents. Um, Definitely being aware of the surroundings, just being more vigilant. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's crazy to think that we live in a world like that. I am so curious though. You don't have kids yet. You have such an incredible heart for this. And where does that
Yeah.
come from? Tell me about that.
Well, man, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. So I believe that we're all here to be heroes. And I believe, that children are the closest thing of mankind there is to pure innocence, right? You know, right from the window of God. So for me, it was like an issue that I kind of just like heard about growing up. Kind of like, I don't really want to think about that kind of issue. It seems kind of dark, seems kind of sensitive. I don't want to focus on that. It's negative. Plus, it's also kind of like disgusting. So I don't really. And then I had this dream. I had this dream in 2020, and I was standing at the gate of this industrial warehouse, and I just felt behind this commercial building. It looked like a place of business, that there was something more nefarious going on in there. That there was actually kids in there. This guy pulls up in a truck and he gets out, he asks me what I'm doing there, tells me to shut the place down, trying to get me to leave. And as the dream ends kind of abruptly as he's coming towards me, like I feel like he's going to kill me. I wake up and I just like, this has got to be a place. This has got to be real. And so I just felt like it was a message I couldn't ignore. I couldn't just go back to sleep. It was one of those dreams where you just like, no, there's something to this. There's something more than just a dream going on here. And so I the next day I didn't do it immediately. I kind of said, hey, I had this dream to some people. And then I just like, I'm going to go try to find this place. It was very vivid. So I was like, okay, it's near train tracks. It's got an industrial fence. It's got a commercial industrial building, warehouse. I was like, okay, I'm going to go drive around. And so I drove around and I was listening to music. And as I was doing that, this story kind of just downloaded upon me. And it's through the process of really kind of building this story and learning more about this issue that the heart for these kids just became a reality. It's like I started to think, what is it like at night for these kids, where Like I have a bad night of sleep, or I have a nightmare, or something like that. It's like their whole existence is a nightmare, and when they wake up from that nightmare, they're still in it, and then when they go to sleep, there is no peace, and there's just a never end. I just imagine, like, when I was a kid, I got lost in a couple different places. Disneyland, I think, one time, a couple different, big stores, and just to think about, in that circumstance, if it didn't end with me being found, me running into my parents' arms, a couple minutes later, if it just never ended, and that your whole existence is that. And it's just something that I've just really prayed on, meditated on, and just every time I'm almost, brought to tears with it. But it's something that I think, at least for these kids having to go through it, that we should face it. We should think about it, have empathy. If we can't change it, at least we could do is, okay, like I can, give it some thought, pray on it, pray for these kids, give them my empathy, at least, instead of just saying, "Oh, I can't think about that. That's so sad." Which is what a lot of people's tendency to do is like, "That's just so sad. I can't go and watch that movie." And it's like, it's a selfish, it's a selfish thing to do that, because, like, they don't have a choice not to think about it. And the least I could do is try to sympathize and feel for them, and,
Yeah.
like, really acknowledge that. And
Yeah.
so through that process, yeah, just my heart's just kind of grown to really have this. And obviously I want to be a father, also one day. And I'm always thinking about, you know, the impact that has and that carries. And honestly, like, there's nothing more impactful than fatherhood. We see that with the cities that don't have fathers, and the things that are taking place. And just a lot of these situations with these children are trafficked. They don't have a father, especially in these other countries. Um, so it's just the responsibility of mankind is to be a father, is to have fathers, because, you know, there's nothing more impactful than a protector, and there's nothing more needed from a child than someone to protect them, and to have the ability to protect them against those that would want to harm them.
Mm.
And it's so amazing. I think what you guys are doing here and starting these conversations, and I could see the heart behind it, is to create not only ways to become a greater father yourself, but to create a generation of people that care about being a really good father, and have it as a topic, to where people are actually seeing that as a really valuable thing, a valuable thing to talk about, but a valuable thing to work on and to create. Me growing up, I had a great dad. It's why I'm even able to dream as big as wanting to make films, is because, my dad was a musician and believed and supported. And he's actually one of the producers on this as well. He's one of the key guys that put together because he was in reality TV production. And so he has a lot of different people, and he's, helped me and my brother start our company. And he's just been a really big, you know, light and supporter, and just vision, and just creativity. And having that is just such an essential thing. You find with people that are most talented, but when they don't have that kind of support system, they don't have that kind of people behind them that will believe, they won't they won't believe in themselves a lot of the time. And yeah, I think when it comes to, like, what it means to be a father, it really kind of comes down to, if you know the Father, and as a believer, that's what, the whole New Testament, the Father, the Father, the Father, it's all about, knowing this person and having this relationship. And it's so essential, and it's so dividing, because some people don't have that they have this, you know kind of animosity towards a faith, just because of the fact that it's about a father. And
Yeah.
it's uh it's just such a big it's just such a big honor and such a big responsibility with what we're working on. And you don't even have to have your own kids. You talk about, I don't have you can be that for people. You can be that mentor. You can be that light. You can bring that to people. And I think that's what we're here for. If someone's not going to step up for their kid and rescue them, if they're willing to traffic them, someone else got to come in and be a father. And I think it's a community thing where we're all responsible for not even our own kids. We're responsible for our neighbors' kids. We see something's going on, you know. And when we take that initiative, when we take that mentality, when we're willing to go and take that responsibility on, I think a lot of amazing stories will come forth, a lot of amazing rescues, a lot of amazing restorations of families. And that's our prerogative. That's our goal in the long term, is creating that synergy dynamic where people are stepping up to the plate outside of even their own family, you know.
So I'm I'm conversating with a man who's not a father, right? And
Yeah.
who was raised in an environment where obviously Christianity was a big part of this. And you had a dream one night. Ben, the story I'm telling myself is you truly believe that you are being called to do this. And the really cool thing is that you've picked up the phone and have answered the call and have taken massive action when other people could have ignored it. So is what I'm thinking true? Do you feel that this
Yeah.
is your calling and what you are supposed to be doing? And is that the reason you're going at this just full force?
Yeah. 100%. It's been a call from the beginning. And if it was just me, I would have probably, you know, let's go work on another project, because there's been so much pushback with wanting to do stuff on this subject. But no, it's been something that I literally I can't walk away from, because of how impressed of a call I felt it's been. And just everything that's happened along the way is just signified and confirmed that it's just been a really amazing and profound journey with this. It's an honor to take that call. And yeah, it's
Can,
definitely exactly what you said.
can we do something just as
Yeah.
I think it would be really meaningful? And I think, have you ever heard of getting to the three whys?
No.
So getting to the three whys, you ask an individual, why do you do what you do? And then
Yeah.
they'll tell you, right? Well, why do you do that? And then they'll tell you. And then, well, why do you do that? Normally, once you get to the third why, you get from here to here. And
Mm-hmm.
you get something that is so personal to them of
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing and why they're doing it that they state it out loud for themselves. So, from a surface level perspective, why are you doing what you're doing?
From a surface level perspective, I would just go right to the heart one.
Yeah, let's just do that. We explained it. So,
Yeah.
I want to know, like,
Yeah.
from to the point it makes you emotional,
Yeah.
right?
Well, because of when I had that revelation, you know, because a lot of times people can't even fathom it, so it doesn't become real for them. When I had this revelation that, man, whatever I'm going through is not as bad as like what one of these kids is going through. I was a kid one day, um, and just to go another day, go another night, get another good night of sleep without doing something about it, without using, you know, I'm not a special ops guy. I'm not a, you know, experienced tactical person, or I'm a filmmaker. And so that's where I can be a superhero, you know, is in using what I'm the best at. And so yeah, it just was just like a real heart for just every night, you know, this is going on, this is taking place, and then just imagining the horror of beyond even just what I can imagine. It just stirred something up in my heart to where it's like, no, I'll die for this. Um, I'll I'll do anything to make sure I'm able to create some sort of change with this, with what I do. And I had other projects I was working on, put them on the wayside. This comes first. I'm not going to go work on something else until I've really done something with this. Um, And so it really comes down to not only wanting to see them rescued, but I want to see uh, them healed. I want to see them restored. I want to see people's lives restored, and I want to see people ultimately. I'm like I said, I'm a Christian, so I want to see ultimately people saved and redeemed and loved, and have that peace of God, that peace that I feel every day of just like love, just true love, and just true safety and true protection. And obviously, as a believer, I want to see people saved, to live forever, because I believe in that. I believe in eternity, and so I want that for people. I want people to have that peace that surpasses understanding, and I want that to be a reality for these kids, that they would be restored, and that they would have a relationship because I have an earthly father, but can't compare to because I grew up in the church, and I had an earthly father, and I love a great dad. It doesn't cut it when it comes to the love that we need as men, as people, and a lot of people are never going to get that love from a human. So they need that love from the actual father. They need that love from a higher source of God. And I believe it manifested himself in history through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And a man that walked on earth and served and loved and was willing to come under people and was willing to be less. And every time they wanted to make him a king, was walking away from that and being humble and serving and guiding people towards truth and love and whatever's around that people have a stigma towards. That's people. And you find that if anywhere. I'm talking about a real relationship that I've found that has brought me such immense, overwhelming, against my doubt, in actual real time, just miracles and stuff that's just been totally unexplainable. And that's why I even had the expectation to go and try to find this place, is because all the crazy things that have taken place that I've seen. And so my why really at the end of the day is, yeah, to please my father, and to move forward and to create a way to where I can bring other people to have that joy and that peace and that love, and especially kids, because these kids can't speak for themselves. They can't defend themselves. They can't make that choice for themselves to free themselves. And so I'm so honored to be able to take up that call in whatever way that I'm able to. And yeah, at the heart, that would be the main thing.
It's an incredible answer, man. And that definitely gets to the heart and soul of what you're doing and why you're doing it, to be that force, and to be that voice for kids who can't. What I'd really like to do is I would love for you. I know the movie actually doesn't even come out until next summer, 2024. But anything, could you share just the premise of the movie and what it's all about?
Yeah, so it's about a young man whose sister goes missing at a public event in their small town, out with friends, and she's never found. 3 years later, he still looking, and is burdened with the guilt and the pain and the blame of being responsible for his little sister, the responsibility given to him. And one night he actually has a dream. He finds himself at this industrial place, in this warehouse on this industrial road, and he's shook by screams that he hears from this dream. He wakes up, and he immediately is just overwhelmed with a sense of urgency, of a sense of just that this was a message. And so he actually ends up going and trying to search to find this place, and it ends up leading to him and his friends attempting to uncover a child trafficking ring in their small town.
It's unreal. I love the fact that this was based on, something that you were inspired yourself, and you turned it
Right.
into this story. You mentioned that people can engage and people
Right.
can support,
Yeah.
this movement, the mission. Is there a way that they can support it before the movie even comes out?
Yeah. And so that's what's exciting and different about this. Totally. juxtaposed to how things are usually done, where, you don't hear about the movie till it's done, and then you see it and you get your tickets to theaters, and then there's, obviously a couple guys in suits that paid for the movie, and they're making decisions usually based off of money, especially nowadays. That's why you only see superhero movies and sequels and all this stuff. And so what we're trying to do is really get the grassroots movement of people that care about this issue to get behind it, and can actually help build it, actually do something, actually help us make this film financially, and make it to where we don't have to be beholden to someone. We can actually have the control of what we have from the box office to give a majority of that to child rescue operations that we're working with, and that we want to see create more change and more fruit and more rescues and more actually wanting to set up eventually a fund to where all of these different organizations that don't have enough money, because, for one thing, Tim Tebow's organization, for instance, spent $70 million on child rescue operations globally, and they've only rescued like 1,000 kids over several years span of time. And so that's, that comes out to almost $70,000 a kid, and some operations cost $100,000, and then they don't even always end up successful. So the issue of ratio to, actual funding to actual rescues it's quite profound, because when you have $150 billion industry, you're going to need a lot of like capital, and that's revenue, so that's not just one-time hit of 150 billion. So there's just so much support. And so our goal is to eventually have this set up to where the film points people towards organizations at the end. They learn about how to partner. They learn about how to become more aware. But then also it's set up to where the fund is actually a point to where people are actually in these organizations can have a resource of like a fountain of to pull from. That's the ultimate goal. It's a big goal, but we just have so many different organizations that we are forming synergies with, that we believe that we're able to actually make an impact and do something with that. And it starts, Sound of Freedom that just came out was just the beginning, and I think that the wave needs to keep breaking, and it's not going to be a one punch thing. It's going to be something with our film coming out next year, that it's that second punch, it's that second wave of movement and of inspiration that people will have to actually make a difference.
Well, man, is there a way, if we could direct anybody who wants to support you, where would they go?
Yeah, so the website is www.dreamfilm.us, and right there you'll be able to see the trailer. You'll be able to hear the message from me, see some other materials that we've released. There'll be updates on events taking place, and then you'll be able to partner and give and build the stream. What we're trying to raise right now for it is about 1.5 million, and that is going straight to production, going straight to what we haven't yet to complete. And then we have distribution methods set up with some of our producers. Our Michael Flaherty, who he produced Everest, I Can Only Imagine, Chronicles of Narnia, Holes, and he's really educated in the distribution partner portion of it and getting this film out there once it's made. And then we have Samuel Rodriguez, who he produced Breakthrough and just the recent Flamin' Hot, and he's a strategic person as well of getting us in contact with media and getting the word out there to people. And so it's a great team that we're building, and that's what's so exciting to people, is that you could be a part of it, and you could be creating it not only to where you're giving for this film to create awareness, but it could be a multiplier when this thing goes bank, that $5, that $10 you put in turns into more towards the actual issue. And so to me, it's a win-win of what we're trying to do here. So streamfilm.us.
No, we got it, man, for sure. And not to worry, we're gonna have those links in the show notes or that link in the show notes for you guys if you want to go support Can I share a very personal story?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And I think this will just, yeah, the story I tell myself when it comes to something like this is most people don't fully understand the gravity of the situation until, you're a parent, and no parent ever wakes up and dreams that this will ever happen to them, that they'll ever lose their kids. So I will tell you, man, and I'm personally gonna go donate to this myself. Um, this was probably, I don't know, 5 years ago, I think. It was a very, even as I tell this story, it's very eerie to me. Just how it all went down. So, you know how most malls are going like bankrupt, right? You go into malls and a lot of them are vacant,
Yeah.
so we got this dog about 5 years ago, and it was a puppy, and we wanted to get her trained. Well, at the time, the trainer would meet us at this mall, and she would kind of work with her in this spot in the mall. And like most of the mall was vacant. They had some of the bigger stores still there. And this was like probably the dumbest thing that we ever did, but this was before our two older kids had cell phones. And so my wife and I, because the trainer needed my wife and I to be there, to make sure that we understood how to train this dog. And we told the boys, hey, you can go over there. And we pointed to where, things were, where they were in sight, and just make sure you don't leave this area. And it was all four of our boys. And they were younger at the time. And one of them was only 3 at the time. And so we're working with this trainer, and we turn around and they're gone, all four of them. And my wife and I were like, oh, they probably just went here or there. My wife and I, long story short, we ended up looking for them for over 40 minutes. And
Wow.
there was points, the mall was like almost, I don't want to say it was vacant, but there was probably, it was a huge mall, maybe
Yeah.
50 people in it at most.
Right.
And my wife and I were sprinting through the mall looking
No
for
worse
these kids.
feeling.
I've never, even telling the story, I've never actually shared the story, but
There's no
the
worse feeling.
anxiety, yeah, the anxiety that I felt was like nothing I've ever felt in
Your
my
world
entire
crumbles.
crumbles. I mean, like, like the worst possible things are happening. There was at one point, man, where I like literally almost just fell to my knees, being like, I will do
Yeah.
anything. Please help me find my kids.
Yeah.
Well, come to find out what they did is they, it was right around Christmas time. They followed
Right.
these signs to J.C. Penney, or Macy's. It was Macy's, which was at the other end of this mall, because they were doing a cooking, a cookie class for little kids.
Right.
So they followed the signs and they went to the and they were just as happy as could be.
Yeah.
We finally found them, and I've never been so
More relief in
angry.
your life. Yeah.
Right, so angry, so relieved, so
Yeah.
overjoyed, so sad, so
Yeah.
panicked. It was like
Yeah.
1,000 emotions that came at me all at once. And like
Yeah.
when I saw my son, I was like, my 10-year-old, I looked at him and he could tell. He's like, looked at me like, what's going on? I was like, where have you been? And
Right.
dude,
Yeah. They don't even they don't even know what's
they
going
don't
on.
even know.
Yeah.
And I crumbled in front, and so did my wife. And they were like, you guys, we've been looking for you for 40 minutes. We had no idea where you went. We told you to stay here. And they're like, oh, we saw these signs. And we were like, but the worst, dude, the worst nightmares. What if someone took my kid? What if they're in a van? What if they are traveling down the highway right now with someone they don't know?
Mm.
What if they're going to go to a house where they're
Yeah.
going to be tortured and molested, and like these
Never to be
things
found.
never to be found? And I have never in my life felt more helpless in my life.
Yeah.
And then the nightmare things that started going through my head of what could happen.
Right.
And I'll tell
Right.
you, man,
Right.
it's no it,
Terrifying.
terrifying. So could the problem happen to you? It absolutely could. And what I will tell you, even for
Yeah.
the 40 minutes of despair that I felt, that was 40 minutes too much.
Yeah.
So I love what you're doing, man.
I had a similar actually experience with my little brother actually when I was younger. I was probably he's 4 years younger than me, and so I was probably like 12, maybe 11, and he went to his friend's house across the street. And so I was supposed to go pick him up, get him to come back. It's probably like 4 years old, maybe. Yeah, so I was probably like 10. He was probably like 4. And knock on the door. Oh, he already walked back home an hour ago. I was like, oh, what? And so I went around the property. We live in an area where there's property, but there's also a neighborhood, and looking for him. Went in all the rooms, and I was just like, I went back and knocked on there. Are you sure he's not in there? He's like, yeah. Like, what? And so I had that same feeling, and I just like I broke down as a little kid, like losing my little brother. And I was like, someone took him, and I was just like bawling pretty much as a little kid trying to protect his little brother. And he ended up being in my other brother's room, but he was just like had his headphones on in like a corner where you couldn't see him. But it was yeah, it's horrifying. And
Horrifying.
all of those imaginations, all of those possibilities start going through your head, and all this anger and all this anger, and it's just horrible. Yeah, and then obviously, I had a similar experience with them. Also, my little brother at the mall, where a lady did actually come up and say she was with he was with a family friend's daughter, and they're waiting outside, I think Victoria's Secret or something like that, or well, the parent mom was in one of these shops or whatever. And a lady walks up and says, "Hey, your mom told me to come get you. You're gonna come with me."
Right.
And the girl just grabs my brother and like starts like getting like shaking, like, and then like takes him inside. But like, yeah, like there's these people out there, and even women, you'd think that it would just be men, but it's could be anyone. And that's
Yeah.
part of what our film kind of gets at, is it's happening right here in America, and you never know who it could be. It could be right next door. It could be someplace you would never expect. It could be a dentist, it could be a doctor, it could be a lawyer, because at the end of the day, people's propensities and tendencies don't have anything to do with what they do as a job, And
Yeah.
so it's it's definitely a common thing. I guess the mall is a place too. It's just scary in general. Just could take place there.
100%, man. Well, gentlemen, let's go support Ben and his mission here. We're going to have all the links in the show notes for you. If you head on over to thedadedge.com/537 for this show again, I'm sorry, 437, thedadedge.com/437, 437. You can go support his mission here. We're going to have the dreamfilms.us in there for you as well if you want to support what he's doing. Obviously, gentlemen, Ben's doing this for a calling, right? And we got to respect this man, honor this man, support a man who picked up the phone from his heart and said, yes, I will do this. So Ben, thank you for what you're doing in the world, man. It's so needed. Thank you for being a warrior who's willing to stand on the front lines and do whatever you can, right? You mentioned, it's like, hey, I'm not a special ops, but I do have a talent. I do have a gift,
Right.
and I can do it this way. I can fight this way. So good for you, man.
Right. I appreciate that, Larry, man. So awesome being here. So awesome talking to you, bro.
Back at you. Gentlemen, like I said, head on over to thedadedge.com/437. Go support Ben. Watch out for your kids. My hope is today that you definitely got some tactics and some ways that we can be more publicly and socially vigilant when it comes to our kids. Make sure you know your kids' parents. I'm sorry, your kids' friends, parents, where they're at all times. Know the people in your neighborhood. You never know who's lurking in your neighborhood. Get your eyes out of your phone and in your surroundings. We've got to be a protector when it comes to our kids. Ben, from my heart to yours, man, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Larry, man.
You
God
bet.
bless you guys.
God bless you, brother.